violence wraps around our necks, steals the children from their play, sends them to an early grave. This is the Fresh Toones Show. My name is Dave Paltz, and the theme of today's show is protecting the children. I'm going to share some of my fresh tunes that are related to kids. Some of them are directly connected to the problems that we're facing right now in this country with guns, and now the biggest cause of death for children are gunshot wounds. Don't really like to talk about it. We'd like to talk about, Second Amendment rights and how people should have the right to have some weapons that are designed to be used in war. And who knows, you might have a gopher out in the backyard there, and you might, want to miss the shot. Or what is it in the South? They say, some wild pigs may attack you, so you need this assault weapon. Anyways, I wrote this song called The Vine of Violence. And I think it pretty much describes how I feel about the vine of violence that's wrapped around our necks that we cannot seem to yank off there. And as adults, we owe it to the kids to find some way to help them out. It's fine to teach the kids how to huddle under their desk. I was trained that way as a kid, to hide under desks from the atomic bombs that were going to perhaps be falling on us in the 1960s. It's not a good way for kids to grow up. This song is called Vine of Violence. The vine of violence wraps around our necks, steals the children from their play, sends them to an early grave. Pointed hands to the sky, no prayers answered, they just keep dying. The sins of those who do not care, weigh them down until they sing. But we all know it isn't fair to let their minds be filled with fear. Much kinder hands must take the lead to find some way to keep them safe. The vine of violence still tries to climb, but if we care at all, we've got to find a way to guard against those who do not care, to stand up for the innocent, to give them hope, not fear. We all know it isn't fair to let their minds be filled with fear. Much kinder hands must take the lead to find some way to keep them safe. We know what we need to say, we know what we need to do, we know we need to show the door to those who need to go, 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 to those who need to go. Yep, we're going to need to escort those that don't want to protect the children right out of Congress, and we'll have to do that in the ballot box. I know there'll be a lot of, oh, what about this or what about that? Well, we got to balance things out here and really pressure those representatives to start doing what we like to see them do. When 90% or so people, including many of the members of the NRA, want stricter gun control, then you'd think that could happen, but it hasn't. So we'll have to remember that when November comes. This next song I'm going to play is called Out West. In the Good Old West. I wrote it in the early 1990s. There was a big push then for some gun control measures, and actually something came about, the assault weapons ban in the early 1990s. And it was in effect for 10 years, and it did have an effect on things. Of course, it didn't have the effect that a lot of people that wanted to scare everybody with it. That didn't happen. People weren't kicking in people's doors and taking their guns and taking their Bibles. That didn't happen at all for 10 years. And all of a sudden, during the George Bush era, Jr., there was a political party that felt, no, the assault weapon ban should be removed, and now we're at where we're at, and I think some things should be reconsidered. This song is called Out West.
Out west, in the good old west, they have their guns as their best friend, and they never ever had to worry 'cause they had their guns. Now in the city, we've got our guns. We've got our guns as our best friends. Well, we never have to worry 'cause we got our guns. We're free. Oh yes, we're free. 'Cause we got our guns as our best friends. Hey kids, you know you're free 'cause you got your gun. All the guys west, in the good old west, they have their guns as their best friends, and they never ever had to worry 'cause they had their guns. Take it away. Shoot 'em up, boys.
That song was called Out West. The next fresh tune that I'm going to play is called A Bone to Pick, and it refers to the things that the young people today have a justified right in asking us adults about, and that they feel that maybe they've got a bone to pick with us, how we've ignored a lot of things. Gun control is a big one. But there's other things like the environment that we haven't been doing all that we can do to slow down the human activities that contribute to climate change. This next song opens up with a little speech that Greta Thunberg made for the world at one of the international climate change conferences. And then it's going to go into the song, and it's going to reference some things that I think the youth today have to ask us about. A bone to pick.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe. The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control. 50% may be acceptable to you, but those numbers do not include tipping points, most feedback loops, additional warming hidden by toxic air pollution, or the aspects of equity and climate justice. They also rely on my generation sucking hundreds of billions of tons of your CO2 out of the air with technologies that barely exist. So a 50% risk is simply not acceptable to us, we who have to live with the consequences. How dare you pretend that this can be solved with just business as usual and some technical solutions? With today's emissions levels, that remaining CO2 budget will be entirely gone within less than 8.5 years. There will not be any solutions or plans presented in line with these figures here today, because these numbers are too uncomfortable, and you are still not mature enough to tell it like it is. You are failing us, but the young people are starting to understand your betrayal. The eyes of all future generations are upon you. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you. We will not let you get away with this. Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not. Thank you.
The youth have a bone to pick. The bee within our bonnet sticks, not so far off in our history sits. Things gone amiss, no longer fit. But we are here, and it is now. If we have the will, we have the power. Our right the wrong. It's a waste to stay in place. Stale ways can change. It's not too late. Let's lift our hammers. Let's turn the page. Let's walk together. Let's sing this way. We have no choice but to raise our voice, to say no more, not gonna do like before. The youth have a bone to pick, have a bone to pick, have a bone to pick. Yes, they've got one big bone to pick. Yes, there's certainly a lot of things that we could do better as adults. Kids have every reason to expect more from us. On the bright side of things, there are some young, very creative young people coming up that have some very hopeful messages to share with us. This next fresh tune was written as a tribute to Amanda Gorman's inspiring poem, The Hill We Climb. The song is called The Primrose Awakes. Our youth beneath the snow harbors new beginnings. The cold is bleak, but the sun's inviting. Their loving faces look to seed, to rise above as winter leaves. Their hearts love, yet endures. A damaged world awaits their cure. The primrose awakes. Yes, the primrose awakes. The primrose awakes in the sun. The little flower brings us joy. The gentle petals say much more. The warmth of love she does reflect. To know her love is just the best. In the primrose awakes. Yes, the primrose awakes. The primrose awakes in the sun. And the primrose awakes. Yes, the primrose awakes. The primrose awakes in the sun. In the sun. In the sun. In the sun. This is the Fresh Toones Show, and today's theme is protecting the children. One of the best ways we can help the kids is get some of their input and see if we can do some things to make things better for them. I always admired Pete Seeger, and he often would have choirs of kids singing with him, and actually wrote a song with the Rivertown kids called We Sing Out. We got the input from the kids of their concerns about their world and the environment, and sat down with the kids, and together they wrote this song called We Sing Out. I've always enjoyed when I've had an opportunity to have a group of kids sing one of my songs to really enjoy the moment, and then to be able to listen later on to them singing the song really moves me. This song is called We Sing Out. Well, you're only kids, they say, and you'll run the world someday. In the meantime, just relax, don't say a word. We can't vote, but don't you see, we can sing out musically. We sing out so our voices can be heard. We sing out so our voices can be heard, can be heard. We sing out so our voices can be heard. Cars and factories everywhere place fossil fuels in the air, and it's making our earth warmer every day. With water, wind, and sun, clean energy for everyone, and we don't have a moment to delay. We sing out so our voices can be heard, can be heard. We sing loud so our voices can be heard. And every time it rains, oh, waste goes down some drain, but it doesn't really go away. We put trash and gasoline into rivers, lakes, and streams, and it shouldn't always have to be that way. We sing out so our voices can be heard, can be heard. We sing loud so our voices can be heard. We can help the sick and poor, the world's people need much more. We sing out for justice and equality. We'll give voices to the meek, help all others hear them speak, and the earth will be the best that it can be. We sing out so our voices can be heard, can be heard. We sing loud so our voices can be heard. All together now. We sing out so our voices can be heard, can be heard. We sing loud so our voices can be heard. I'd like to thank Pete Seeger and the Rivertown Kids for writing that song. I always enjoy singing it, and whenever I play out, I always make sure I get that song on the song list. I think I have time for one more song today, and this is a fresh tune of mine called The World We Want to Live In. And when I was a teaching artist in the Rochester City Schools through young audiences of Rochester, I would use this song for the soundtrack of the music videos that we made. And the kids sometimes they would do cutout animation, and sometimes to their morphing animation, I would have this song in the background, and if the music teacher was up to it, she would get some of the kids together before the animation workshop that I would provide and record the kids singing it. It was quite a trip because there was quite a number of classes I did back then, and a lot of different kids were singing the song, and it was really rewarding to hear the kids get into the song. They seemed to relate with the theme of singing about the kind of world that they want to live in.
Every day to hear what we've got to say. If we just think it out, we can turn this world about. We may not paint a masterpiece. Every kind word paints a picture too. So any work or play, let us live our lives today as the folks we want to be, to change the world that we see. The world we want to live in is changing every day. It's up to us in how we choose to live. We'll decide which way she goes. We'll decide which way she goes.
And that's it for the Fresh Tune Show this week. I felt very strongly about doing this theme called Protecting the Children. I hope we all spend a little bit more time thinking about how we can do exactly that. I think one of the most important things is to ask questions of our representatives, put our votes behind those people that are making an effort to protect the children. I hope there's some way that we can all contribute to bringing down the amount of violence in our country. It's not fair to the kids to have to be so fearful all the time. Have a nice week, and we'll keep working on things. So long now.
The vine of violence wraps around our necks, steals the children from their play.